welcome the president of Dealer Synergy. With 26 plus years and 4,000 rooftops in 6 countries, 30 covers of every major automotive sales magazine, 17-time NADA convention speaker, 16-time winner of the Dealer's Choice Award, generated over $12 billion of additional revenue for clients, creator of the #1 Facebook group in the automotive industry, the Millionaire Car Salesman community, #1 podcast in the automotive sales industry, best-selling author of Googleopoly, NSA CSP, member of the Elite $1 Million Speakers Group, host of the Against All Odds broadcast radio show, 104.7 WONK FM and iHeartRadio, immersed in automotive CRM for 26 plus years, working with over 15 different CRMs, created a video-on-demand training, tracking, and testing certification platform for the automotive industry. Sean V. Brad Lea.
Good morning, Las Vegas. First of all, it's an honor to be here, especially Open Up Digital Dealer. This is kind of surreal for me because I've been part of Digital Dealer on and off throughout the years since around 2005. Before it was even Digital Dealer, it was called the AAISP. How many of you guys remember the AAISP? Oh, wow, yeah, it's the Association of Automotive Internet Sales Professionals. So it is my honor to introduce my co-host for today. The next gentleman, I'm going to put on a little quick intro video right here.
Now presenting the managing partner of Withers Automotive Group, NADA Academy graduate, CMDA conference speaker, former U.S. naval officer. Withers Automotive Group was the cover story of Dealer Magazine, July-August 2024 edition. Ladies and gentlemen, Nelson Lyles.
So as Nelson makes his way out here, I can't tell you how incredible this gentleman is. He's the managing partner of a dealer group that was just featured on the cover of Dealer Magazine over the summer, and they took their dealer group public. For a minority dealership to be able to do that, can we have a round of applause, please, right here? This is pretty big. What's up, brother?
Hey, man, what's going on? Thank you very much. I appreciate being here with you guys.
Okay, and now, without further ado, I want to introduce our final keynote speaker. I'm going to put the little video to introduce my very good friend, Mr. Brad Lea.
I dropped out of high school at 16 years old. There's no way in hell I should be successful. I shouldn't be a multi-millionaire. I shouldn't have multiple companies.
I'm honored to have the great Brad Lea here.
Man named Brad Lea.
Mr. Brad Lea. You have to change your beliefs in order to change your actions. You need to walk into the room like you own the bitch. You need to roll out like you sold it.
All right, baby, make some noise for Mr. Brad Lea, please. Woo! Let's go, Brad.
Woo. Wow, what's happening?
What's up, my brother?
Thanks, buddy.
Absolutely. So again, the panel that we had is me as a national trainer, managing partner of a dealer group, and a sales technology guru. We figured that we would be able to create this keynote presentation for you all today. I'm going to give you a little heads up. This is not going to be a traditional presentation with slides. We're going to do this in honor of Brad Lea with his amazing podcast, Dropping Bombs. It's going to be more like a podcast conversation style. If you notice, there's microphones that are to the sides right here. If you guys have questions, just feel free to line up and ask questions to the panel here. I'm going to get started first with kind of just giving what I call the current situation analysis of the industry as we see it today. Who's read this book by Spencer Johnson, Who Moved My Cheese? All right, this book, in my opinion, personifies the current situation that we're in right now. So I'm going to take a couple minutes to blast through this, and then we're going to start the conversation, okay, guys? The cheese has been moved. Obviously, the pandemic changed a lot of things for a lot of dealers for the whole world. However, we were living, I think, in a bubble for several years. We didn't have to practice, drill, rehearse. We didn't have to really inspect the money that we're spending as closely as we should have. And we talked about this before. It's sometimes hard to teach people how to fish when the fish are jumping in the boat and they're fat. Would you guys agree with that? But the market has changed. There's been a huge readjustment of our industry. The OEMs are building more vehicles right now, which means that they are discounting these vehicles, which means that dealers are discounting these vehicles as well. So people are kind of racing to the bottom. If that makes sense or resonates, make some noise if that's what you guys are finding in the industry where you're at. Okay. It's not a pretty thing to be proud of, I agree, but it's a reality that we have right now. In addition to that, everything's more expensive. Human resources, payroll, interest rate, floor plan, etc. Expensive, expensive, expensive. So what is this doing? This is basically causing a lot of chaos in our industry. I've got dealers right now that are spending a ridiculous amount of money on their vendors. I'm not going to call anybody out by name, but this is real. This is from 2 days ago. We have a dealer that's a CDJR store that's spending $14,000 and change on their website and things to drive to their website to only generate 57 leads. That same dealer spent an extra $5,700 on online classified to only generate 21 leads. But we're not paying attention. We're gonna hit this about spending all this money, but not putting it where it really belongs in people development and process development and things like that. So now, anybody heard of this fable? This is so true of our industry, is that the emperor's clothes, that's where these two con artists basically convinced the king, who was very vain, or the emperor, that they were gonna make him the most beautiful clothes, and if anybody didn't recognize it, they were either stupid or inept. And unfortunately, no disrespect, this is what happened right now. You have vendors that are telling you, oh, no, you gotta buy this. You gotta buy these VDPs and SRPs and all this other stuff, but it doesn't translate to dollars or to profits. But we keep doing it because somebody comes in and dazzles you with BS. I see people like, oh my God, he's taking me to church. Absolutely, this happens every day. We have got to start paying attention to what we're spending, our money and time on. So, HR is a major issue with attrition. Now think about what I'm about to say, and then we're gonna open up the panel here. For so many years, we didn't have to staff up because if we had the cars, we could sell them and sell them at list or over list, right? Okay, we didn't have to flood the floors. We didn't have to do certain things. We didn't have to work bell to bells. Hell, we didn't even have to compete. Now those days are over. What's happening to a lot of dealerships is they don't have enough people. They don't have the right people. And the people they do have, if they've sold cars in 4 years or less, they don't know what the real automotive industry is with competition and having to deal with holdback and things like that. So I want to open it up to our panel here and kind of figure out, okay, what do you guys think about this? I'm going to start with Nelson as a managing partner of a dealer group. Okay, what do you feel are the biggest challenges that you and your organization and the industry face as of today?
Right now, first of all, thank you very much. One of the biggest challenges that we have in the industry right now, especially in our stores, is personnel and HR, right? HR and personnel, they kind of run hand in hand. It goes back and alludes to what you were just saying, and it actually falls into a much smaller window. So anybody that we hire within the last 2 years that has no automotive industry experience whatsoever, we're discovering that the HR problem is that we can't treat them or train them or address them in the way that most people that have been in the car business for 10 or 15 years are accustomed to training, treating, and addressing people. It's a completely different avenue. Their level of communication is different. One of the things, for example, is I came up in the car business at a time where you would tell people, I want you to make 100 phone calls. Don't come out of your cubicle, don't come out of your office, make 100 phone calls. What we've learned is that now we have to talk to the people that are in our stores with, I need you to make 50 contacts. They will make 50 contacts in a third of the time, more efficiently and more effectively than what somebody will make 100 phone calls with. So what we discovered was they'd make 100 phone calls, they might turn around and reach 5 to 10 people. Out of those 5 to 10 people, they might turn around and generate 2 to 3 appointments. And we beat them to death. We couldn't understand why they would come back in the store after 2 weeks talking about this isn't really for me. All of a sudden you're looking for them. All of a sudden they're putting fluff in your CRM that isn't accurate, and they're taking on the traits of an experienced, worn out car person, and you're trying to figure out how that happened. What we discovered was we created it. We communicated them in a fashion that they weren't accustomed to being communicated to. And the learning experience was real easy. I had a young man in my store look at me and say, I made 100 phone calls, I didn't do anything off it, why am I doing this? I said, well, I really wanted you to turn around out of 100 phone calls, I wanted you to get 25 contacts. He said, why didn't you tell me that in the first place? He picked up his phone, he did about 3 actions on his phone, walked back up to me 15 minutes later and had 30 contacts, right? So therefore, what do we have? Light bulb goes off. So what we have to do is find out how we're going to communicate differently. The next problem that we have in our stores right now, and it's one again a generational thing, is the influx of AI. Now, I was reluctant about bringing this up when Sean and I were talking because, let's face it, I'm in a room full of digital dealer people, right? So everybody in this room that's digitally involved has a belief and a structure and a process on AI. There's some vendors in here that are real big on AI, but it doesn't remove the fact that most dealers, most managers in your stores have no idea what the impact of AI is, what the compliance of AI will be, or what the fallbacks and pitfalls are. So therefore, if you don't know that, how do you really embrace the benefits? So what we discover is our communication again. We have people that will talk digital, people that will talk, IT, people that will talk IA, but it goes back to, and I'm really gonna date myself here, is when we really started getting on board with finance departments in dealerships, right? You would have all these finance people turn around and walk in, and nobody could understand the level of communication.
We're going to definitely circle back. Brad, a lot of people know you as the CEO of Lightspeed and the podcast from Dropping Bombs, but you have a massive background in automotive, and you're a general manager right here in Las Vegas at Tobin Dodge. You're watching, you have a ton of clients that are dealers. What do you see as one of the biggest challenges right now facing dealers?
If you ask me, I would say most dealers are trying to find people and train them, but the training that a lot of you guys are doing isn't really training at all. It's just exposing. And so to train people properly, like if you look at athletes, military, anyone that's actually trained, there's 4 key components. There's good content, repetition, practice, and accountability. And when we hire people at car dealerships, we think we're training them, but we're really just exposing them. And I don't know where everybody's from, but exposure will get you arrested here.
Okay, so let's double down on the training thing because, Nelson, you were a naval officer, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I had the honor to be able to interview a gentleman named Lieutenant Commander Sean Matson from the Navy SEALs when I had my radio show, Against All Odds. And we were talking about the importance of training, practice, drilling, and training. And this is from a lieutenant commander of the Navy SEALs, and he said, Sean, you gotta understand something. When we are practicing firearms, for example, I used to practice just removing my sidearm and raising it up hundreds of thousands of times. Forget about suppressing the trigger and striking a target and like that. Just that motion and the amount of obsession and dedication to the craft. How important is it in the military, for example, in special warfare, to be able to train to be the absolute best?
It's essential. It's funny that you bring that up. You don't even have to go to that level. How many people in this room have served in the military at all? Just raise your hand just real quick. Not trying to expose anybody, but here's my reason for saying that. One of the first things that you do is when you go through getting off the bus, you turn around, you get into a barracks. The very next morning, the first thing that they're going to do is teach you how to make a bed. Now, you got to remember something. Everybody in the military is of legal age. So you would assume that they know how to make a bed by the time they get there at 18 years of age. You would be surprised they're going to give you very defined, very, very almost remedial steps to making this bed. There's no variation in it, okay? It has to be made the same way by every person in that barrack. And they will go over it and over it every single morning that you're in boot camp, okay, till it's automatic. And they will walk in the room and every bed will be made exactly correctly. They will strip it from one infraction. Okay, there are penalties for not making it correct. The reason why I bring that up is the gentleman that you spoke to talked about the muscle memory of removing a sidearm. Well, think about how him at that point in his career, it all began, regardless of where you began or where you ended, at making your bed. And right now, to tie into some of the things that we're talking about training in this new normal, we have people that don't even know how to make their bed. You know, we've got people that don't get up and make their bed. You know, we have people that we assume understand the sales process. We have people that we assume understand how to speak to a customer. But we're hiring people that come from a generation where 90% of their time is spent in a video game where there is no actual face-to-face interaction. Absolutely none whatsoever. But we turn around, put them in a room, draw some stuff on a chalkboard, put them in front of a video camera, tell them, hey, listen, watch these 10 videos, and now you're a sales professional. Go get them, buddy. And they're out there without even knowing how to make their bed.
So, Brad, for you, as you hear a managing partner of a dealer group say this, can you reinforce what you're talking about specifically with training? Because this, as a trainer, frustrates me. When you talk to dealers and like, oh, no, we already do that, or we've done that before. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. If you're practicing the wrong things and you're practicing incorrectly, you're just developing a hot mess. Brad, what do you say to that, and how can dealers start to focus on a proper strategy from to develop their people?
Well, again, it goes back to those four things. But, most dealers have a library of videos. They don't have a training system. And the key is the word system. That's what most people miss. They think the videos is a training system. That's just a library of videos. Somebody needs to track, measure, monitor, role play. The repetition is key, critical. Okay, practice. How do you practice with a video? So I don't know if anybody knows Lightspeed, but Lightspeed was designed from the car business for the car business. That's what kind of broke me away from the car business. Then I started selling it to all kinds of companies, all kinds of industries, because of the effectiveness of the technology. But the technology allows you to train people with repetition, allows them to practice on virtual customers, not real ones, so they can get those word tracks down. They can get that internalized and more familiar, so they're not walking out there blind. Because what most dealers do is spend $50,000 a month bringing customers in the door and zero on training the people to handle those customers. Or they think their sales managers are training people when they're just exposing people. They're giving them the good content, the good information, but there's no repetition, there's no practice, and there's no accountability. So to solve that, especially in the digital world, is you leverage the internet and you create videos, but those videos should be, number one, tracked, measured, and monitored. Number two, there should be interactive role play exercises, because they are used to a video game. So if you just give them a library of videos, they're watching, they hit play, and then they're on their video game. They're not listening anyway. But there's no testing, there's no accountability, there's no role play, there's no making sure they actually understood it. So what's important, that they watched it or that they understood it? So if you put a training system in place, it's an actual system that does all those things, then you eliminate those problems.
So, dealers, this is what happens a lot. Dealers come to Digital Dealer or NADA or whatever event, they find stuff and they expect magic pills to work. But what they don't do is inspect what they expect. So what I love about what Brad is saying is having a training system. One of the things that I do, which is anti-vendor-ish, right, is I make sure that all of our dealers that are on our training system, that whenever we do a live training class, or if they're going to be working with anybody from our team, they have to have the Zooms on. Here's what happens. You'll tell your people to go watch this video or whatever from the OEM, and they're not paying attention, or they're being distracted. Someone's coming into that office or into that room or the call center or BDC multiple times, distracting them. It's crazy. What you have to do is create a system that's going to develop your people. I just can't fathom why we would practice with real customers when there's so much at stake, when there's so much money on the table, there's so much opportunity, but we drive, like Brad said, a tremendous amount of money in marketing, advertising, and branding, but yet the human resources that are there, which are supposed to be your single biggest differentiator. I work with Toyota OEM officially for the Chicago region, so we have about 112 Toyota dealerships in that region. It's a great brand, but how are you going to differentiate yourself if you're a Toyota dealership in a region of other Toyota dealerships? You sell the same cars. It's people and processes. The other thing is, as high-level people know, there's a science to communication. 55% of communication is visual perception, body language. 38% of communication is sound and inflection. Only 7% of communication is text or the words that we use. You are assuming that every one of your people are like you, that are going to learn like you, are going to be like you, and if not, let's blow them out because they weren't shit. That's not the right way. People have different mind patterns. They learn differently. Kinesthetic thinkers, visual thinkers, auditory thinkers, hybrid thinkers. You need a training program that's going to help people understand and comprehend the information the way that they were designed to by God. Do you understand that? You can't meet them where they're at. There's so many people that jump from dealership to dealership because they think it's better. One of the biggest reasons is because we're performance-based, we're commission-based. If you can't make a living to feed your family, you're not going to have a choice but to jump to the next one, We've got to stop the cycle of craziness and develop these people. I mean, for the love of God, I mean, like, if you look at professional sports, forget about a combat soldier, a tier 1 operator from Navy SEALs, but just a professional athlete. We run around, we're professional car people, we're automotive sales professionals. How, if we act like we're JV? I'm gonna repeat that. How can we say that we're automotive sales professionals? A professional. When I think of professional, I think of Michael Phelps, multiple gold medalists in the Olympics. I think of a Tom Brady. I think of, a Hoist Gracie. I think of some of the Dave Chappelle. I see people that master their craft. If you want to have good people, great people, you have to develop them. Yes or no? Yes. So Brad, what do you recommend if you're speaking to people here and they're like, okay, wait a minute, I need to change my paradigm. I love your intro video. You said beliefs. Covey says, from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, see, do, get. Folks, this is a little pro tip. If you want change, you want long-term change that's gonna actually manifest and stick, you can't just focus on the problem. You can't even focus on your ownership. You gotta focus on the paradigms of yourself and your organization. If you change beliefs, you'll be able to change behaviors. Brad, can you speak about that? Because I thought that was awesome in there, about changing the paradigm, and then, okay, if you get them at the paradigm, how do you get them with the training?
Well, again, it goes back to repetition. Like, again, I went into car dealers that'll spend $50,000 to drive people in, and then I say, well, how are you training your people? And, again, a sales manager talks to them every Friday or whatever the norm is. Training takes repetition. To drill that information into your head is an effort. And sales managers might say they're doing it, but they're not doing it. They think they're doing it, which is even worse. Because when you're sitting there like, I'm training them. Well, you're not training them, you're exposing them. You're giving them some information and hoping they understand it, rather than invest a fraction of that advertising budget. Like, one time we did a test at a dealership that he was spending $100,000 a month driving in leads. I said, spend $98,000 driving them leads, spend $2,000 on that training system, not a library of videos, but that system, and see what happens. He sold more by spending $98,000 on ads and training the staff properly than he did spending $100,000 and not training the staff. How many of you guys have weekend sales and you got ads in the paper? And is there still papers? But you guys know what I'm talking about. You guys spend all this time and money, and you go into these sales meetings and you tell them, hey, we've got the Toyota over there, don't sell it. That's the switch them over here. All the stuff that we have to deliver, and everybody's nodding their head yes, and then everybody goes out and can't figure out where the booth is, how to log people, how to turn somebody properly, how to turn them over to finance properly. Well, they've never really done it. All you've done is blah, 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 blah.
But Brad, they don't want to do the training, Brad. They don't want to do the training.
Well, that's not necessarily a training problem. That's a management problem.
Oh, wait a minute. Video people, can you remix that? Can I get a remix? Can you repeat that, what you just said, please?
Well, when people say I can't get them to do it, that's not a training problem. That's a management problem.
Who agrees with that? Make some noise. Folks, listen, I want to start this event right, but that is a pet peeve of mine. Talking to multi-millionaires or multi-billionaires of dealer groups and hearing that I can't get my people to do the training. I mean, again, have you heard of Wesley Snipes and the IRS? I mean, when there's rules, people got to follow them. If not, there's consequences. Yes or no?
Yeah, but again, you don't know who's trained. See, it sounds easy, but unless you have a way to track them and measure them and make sure what you're delivering is being understood, not just watched, it's hard to know. So I'm going to blow this guy out. I don't even know if he's trained. I think he understands. I hope he understands. But at the end of the day, we don't know. And so sales managers and leadership of a department or the whole entire dealership, they're just making assumptions. You train him? Yeah, I trained him. Well, he ain't getting it. Blow him out. Or, well, what's the issue? Well, the issue is he thinks he trained when he just exposed, number one. Number two, rather than blow him out, how about just train him properly? Train them properly. You guys are already spending money on balloons and toilet paper. Like, literally the toilet paper for the dealership so people can do their business. If you look at the line item on the statement, you're spending more money on toilet paper. And some people are thinking in their minds, I'm sure, well, we're training them. That's what I want you to go ask yourself. Are you training them or are you exposing them? Because one small, ridiculously low investment in an actual system will eliminate a lot of things. And not only that, a lot of sales managers don't understand the value of a system Because now when you see somebody that's weak on getting people on paper, or they don't know how to negotiate, or they don't know how to turn someone to finance, you can send them to a system that does the repetition and the role play and the practice, and then management can just polish. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have to repeat myself 1,000 times. Who values their time? But I mean, at the end of the day, if you really think about it and take things seriously, if you value your time, why are you saying the same shit or the same stuff over and over again? Like, say it once perfectly, put it into a training system, let that do the monotonous delivery of repetition, and then now I'm going to talk to you and say, do you have any questions? Even onboarding, like, you can create a system that all the applicants that come through, you can pop up an interactive video that says, hey, here's what we expect, here's what we want, are you willing to do this, are you willing to do that, do you understand this, do you understand that, and weed out all the weaklings in the first place. Because let's face it, there's a lot of softies being brought up in the world.
I want to now pivot. I want to talk about the content, because Nelson said it when he was speaking and when he first hit the stage about the different type of curriculum. So obviously there's product knowledge from the OEM, and then there's the road to the sale. But we tell our people all the time that car sales is like owning your own business. It's a white lie, because it's not. It can be if you treated it like entrepreneurship. But if we act like an employee, then that's all they're ever going to be. So what I want to do is I'm going to start, and then I want you guys to add additional curriculum. How should be, the rhetorical question right now is, how should dealers be training their people? And not the system and not the program. I'm talking about what curriculum, what content. So we have product knowledge. We've got the road to the sale. But again, you just said it, if the most precious commodity is time, how many times a day at your dealership do you freaking go crazy inside, screaming in pillow, metaphorically speaking, because your people are not effective? They're in huddles or they're wasting time. I mean, if I could just do that one thing, if I could help you all make sure each and every one of your employees and your managers and the owners are all productive, how much more effective we would be. So time maximization, time organization. We're talking about marketing, advertising, branding, not just for the dealership or the dealer group, for the salespeople. You guys know my daughter, T Got Your Keys? At 19 years old, she was averaging 20 plus units a month because she had tgotyourkeys.com. She was driving traffic like a dealership. She had Instagram ads, Facebook ads, TikTok videos that went viral, 2.5 million views on a video. But we're not teaching our salespeople, our BDC, how to leverage and sell cars on TikTok, how to use video email, video text messages. We're not teaching them how to use ChatGPT. Question for you. Who in here is a drive-centric dealer? Raise your hand. Okay, there's some drive-centric dealers. Do you realize that drive-centric CRM has ChatGPT integration, video email, video text messaging capabilities? You have the ability, and this is not a commercial for them, it's a warning. Because if you're not a drive-centric dealer and you are going against one of them as your competitors, they have this whole arsenal of tools and resources that are in their CRM, and you are not competing even on an equal level. So for my awesome panelists here, what type of curriculum should they be training on? So Nelson, what should you train your people?
One of the first things that we have to identify, and this goes to something that Brad brought up that was a really, really great point, and I don't know if everybody grasped it. We've tossed the word time around. And the reality of it is when you're in this industry, none of us have enough time, right? But more importantly than that, when we're training, we go into training a lot of times without an agenda. So we walk into a meeting, we throw our hands up, go up to a grease board and start writing down all this information. Nobody ever knows in the room what we're training on. More importantly than that, we don't value their time or their attention span. Now, I'm not saying that the people in the car business don't have an attention span, but the fact of the matter is how many of us have really timed our meetings? For example, and I'm going to speak personally, I had to learn to hold meetings within a 15-minute window. When I started paying attention to that 15 minutes and how much information I could get out in 15 minutes, what I discovered was people retained more. They were more engaged, okay? They were more involved, and they were actually more engaged in the entire meeting process because they knew it was going to be 15 minutes. But to do that, which alludes to what you said previously, is you have to have an agenda. Okay, so you've got to have a training schedule which goes to your system. And I really believe that a lot of us don't have that. So we just walk in and say, we have to have a sales meeting this morning at 8 o'clock. Who's going to conduct the meeting? Okay, Bob, you didn't do it, you do it this morning. Bob had no idea he was going to do the meeting. Bob's going to get up there and say, what? How many appointments do we have? Okay. What did you do with your unsold customers? Geez, Bob, who TO'd your deal yesterday? And all the rest of that gibberish that they know because they had the very same meeting from Tom the day before, the very same meeting from Sam the day before that with the very same questions. So what is the agenda for them to progress? Are we really talking about the needs of the dealership? Are we really talking about the needs of the department? To allude to what you had asked about, how do we have them run their own business? I personally train our staff on what I refer to as high-touch referrals. What are they? They're people in the community that work in occupations that touch a lot of people. It's not a big science to it. You know, if the guy at the barber shop has a great business and you get your hair cut there, please make no comments, but okay, you get your hair cut there, guess what happens? He touches a lot of people. So what do you really do? How are you developing that relationship?
So referral generation.
Referral generation based on high-touch areas.
Prospecting.
Okay, but those referrals have to turn around and be incentivized. Nobody does anything for $100. Nobody is going to go and refer somebody for $100. I know I'm going to hurt some feelings here. Nobody is going to go do anything for $200. People will move mountains for $500. Some of you are saying, well, how do you make that work cost effective? Goes back to what Brad said. That's your sales manager's job. He understands that. If he's a good manager, he's going to price it that way.
So Brad, for you, and for the people that don't know, he's the founder of Lightspeed VT. I mean, having brilliant authors and trainers like Tony Robbins, Jordan Belfort, people that are not alive like Zig Ziglar, you have this amazing platform with the best minds in the world with diversified curriculum. In your professional opinion, what do you think curriculum-wise dealers should empower their staff with? Let's start on the sales floor BDC.
Well, again, number one, you guys already have the right information. You're just not delivering it, holding it accountable, inspecting what you're expecting, because it's difficult to run around and make sure. Like, you'd need a full-time person there always walking around, and you probably need 2 or 3. So I wouldn't say we want to change what we're training. I think we want to effectively train what we're training, and you'll see a massive jump. You know, prospecting, referrals, the road to the sale, building a personal brand. I would rather have 10 internet superstars on my staff than 10 people that don't know anybody with 200 followers. You know, I want somebody to leverage the internet to drive traffic to me, not just wait for the traffic I'm driving. You know what I'm saying? So I would teach the fundamentals. You know, when I would go in and take over a dealership and double or triple their numbers, they're like, how'd you do it? I just made sure everybody was turning, everybody understood how to negotiate, everybody understood how to walk a trade and, you know, do what we did. It was the fundamentals, but I was effectively training people. And to do that right takes a lot of time. And unless your store has a trainer, and a lot of these dealer groups have trainers that go from, you know, store to store to store, give them the tool of a system of technology. See, to grow and scale a company, what you're going to need are 2 things: people and technology. That's it, just people and technology. So if you know you're going to need people, and you want a system that can bring them on board and get them educated on the fundamentals, the latest and greatest current trends, like building a personal brand. I mean, I have millions of followers. The other day I just bought a car, and at the dealership, I was showing the dealership, and the guy called me and said, dude, we sold 3 cars from your post. So it's like, what if you had a whole staff of people building their brand? And that stuff doesn't go away. You know, does your dealership have a podcast? You know, how do you buy a car and not get whacked? You know, now you're getting people that'll drive miles because they heard a podcast. My podcast gets hundreds of thousands of downloads a month, and I look and it's like they're downloading one I did 4 years ago. So are you implementing some of these current trends and leveraging marketing, really, is what it is. Because again, you know, ads will drive customers in, but if your staff isn't properly trained, you're not going to get the effectiveness of that ad spend. So I would just go back and I would say, listen, there's not secrets that you're not training. You're just not training effectively. So again, I wouldn't worry about what do we need to teach them. We already know what to teach them. And if you don't, take the guy who's selling 20 cars or the girl who's selling 20 cars. What are you doing every day? Great, we're gonna duplicate this person. We're gonna make sure everyone's doing the same thing. Because 9 times out of 10, to get what someone's getting, you just gotta do what they're doing. Most people won't do it. And then you can identify the weak sucks, and you don't have to wonder if they know. You know that they know, they're just not doing it. Well, now you can go ahead and make that turnover and bring on somebody new because you have a training system and everybody in your dealership's not rolling their eyes because they got a bunch of new people to train. And I'll tell you, I've been in the dealerships where I'm trying to bring on 5 salespeople and HR won't let me. Why? Well, because we do it every Tuesday. Wait for Tuesday. It's like, why would I wait for Tuesday? Well, that's when, somebody comes in and holds the new hire onboarding. You can virtualize that new hire onboarding and hire on demand and train on demand. And by the way, that doesn't eliminate the face-to-face and the belly-to-belly, but a trained professional will outperform an untrained professional. Do you agree? So are they professional? Do they know the information? Just like right now, this isn't training. I don't know what you guys are thinking. Half of you are probably thinking, who's this goofball in a t-shirt? Why am I listening to him? Well, I've got data from all of the dealerships. We're in thousands of dealerships. And I can see the data, and ironically, the top salespeople train the most. The top dealerships are training the most. Why? Well, because they have a system and it's not difficult anymore. And it's effective. And so when you go back to your dealership, just ask yourself, do you have a training system or do you have a library of videos? Or do you have a training system or do you have a couple sales managers talking to them, once or twice a week? Because training takes good content. I think you have that. We already know what to train them. Prospecting, follow-up, referrals. And by the way, effective prospecting. Prospecting is not, you ready to buy yet? You ready to buy yet? You ready to buy yet? Prospecting should be building relationships, building your brand in your community. That's not necessarily being done, when the sales manager walks in and says, did you call the logs? All they're saying is, hey, did you ready to buy? Like, train them properly and the fundamentals will move the needle. Just the fundamentals.
Yeah, so we want to show something for you guys. We're going to kind of debut it officially to the industry right here. So.
I sent you a text, but you left me on red, and that's what people do. But don't let that be you. See, I sent you a text, but you left me on red, and I just wanna talk. Why you call? The phone is gonna ring. The voicemail's gonna beep, and I just wanna speak. Why you call?
That video we created as a marketing piece. I didn't want to turn this into a full commercial for Dealer Synergy, but that's why it's buzzing. We created a ridiculously high-end video specifically for our industry, so it's a commercial for Dealer Synergy. The reason why I'm saying this is because Brad is so right. There's so many dealers that are not investing in themselves and their brands. For the love of God, some of you right here are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on vendors, but you're not developing equity into your brand. You're spending all this money on third-party entities, but not developing yourself as the local celebrity, the local subject matter expert, whether they're videos or their podcast or their fun things like this. So with that being said, did you guys like the video? Round of applause for Karina Bradley. All right, good. Now, we got a couple minutes left. What questions do you guys have for our panel for Brad Lea or Nelson Lyles? If there's any questions, please just come up to the mics right there. If not, we'll let you guys enjoy the show.
Hey, y'all, I'm D-Pen.
What's
I'm
up,
actually
D?
from Hampton, Virginia. I'm the top salesperson at my organization. I invest in myself, of course. One thing I could say from a sales professional standpoint, everything that they've said up there is correct. And I'm going to tell you from the little man, as y'all call us, right? When it comes to training, developing, and coaching, everything that can be measured can be managed. And the question I have for Nelson, Brad, Sean, KB, either one, from the little salesperson's soul that sits in the background that sees everything that happens, but know that everything that you guys are saying right, because I'm recording this, please speak to the dealer or the managers that don't have the courage to look in the mirror. What is one thing you would say to them to change their complacency?
First off, D, great question. The only thing that I would say is something that I always try to remember and start every day with. There's only 2 reasons why people don't do things, and I don't care if you're an adult, if you're a professional, or if you're a kid. And those 2 reasons are very, very simple. One, you don't know, okay, which ties into they're not trained or they have no knowledge of it. Or two, they don't give a damn. Now, I know that's a real hard way to look at things, but if you think about it, there's only two reasons why people don't do things. It's real simple. Either they don't have the knowledge to do it, or they have the knowledge and they don't care to do it. So, Dee, hopefully that adds to what you're trying to ask, because it takes a manager to have to look in the mirror and realize if they're a good manager and people aren't executing, it's not because of the people, it's because of them. If you're a manager and your store's underperforming, it's because of you. They say that, the crown is what? The weight of the crown is heavy at the top, or however that little term goes. But the fact of the matter is anytime that you have people that you're responsible for, anytime you have people that look up to you or people that you're leading, you have to realize that the only two reasons why they either conform or do is because they don't know or they don't know how.
Brad, want to answer that, in your opinion?
I would say go look in the mirror and ask yourself if you're willing to make the tough decisions. Because literally, you're in that spot to make decisions, hopefully. And if you're not prepared to make the tough decisions, well, then just vacate the spot. Let someone else do it. At the end of the day, if I were to walk into a dealership today, and I haven't been in a dealership in a while, but if I were to walk into a dealership today, I could take the exact things that you're doing and grow the business simply from installing repetition, practice, and accountability. Now, in order to do that, again, you're gonna need leadership, okay, real leadership. And to me, like a real leader is going to set the example, be the example. So a lot of people that are put in the spot aren't willing to do that. They're not willing to make the tough decisions. You guys have personal relationships with some of these people. You don't want to necessarily fire someone who should be fired. You don't want to necessarily do what it takes to get the job done because you're unaware of the technology that could make it easier. So you do nothing. You don't want to let someone go. You don't necessarily know how to properly train them. And why are people quitting? Most of all, people quit because they're not successful. Like, you make me call 100 people and nothing happens. Eventually, I'm going to say, why am I calling these 100 people? Well, I wouldn't necessarily have them call 100 people. I'd have them learn what to say effectively and then call 100 people.
Thank you, everybody. Can we give a round of applause to Brad Lea, Nelson Lyles, and Karina Bradley? Thank you guys so much for having us. Enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you guys for being part of this.
Listen, if you don't have access to Brad Lea On Demand, you're missing out on crucial information. The top automotive groups like Koons, Lithia, and Norm Reeves have all used Brad Lea On Demand to train their teams. And guess what? The world's #1 car salesman, Cody Carter, shares his exclusive strategies right here. You want his secrets? You gotta have Brad Lea On Demand. Stop waiting and start winning. Dominate your market. Click the link and get access now.